What's up, everybody? It's Brian Tripp. Welcome back to the REI Coaches podcast. I get on the very, very best real estate coaches and mentors so you can have a better real estate coaching business. I don't know of anyone out there that's doing this that wants to help coaches as much as I do and as much as we do. We have a great guest, Richard Roop, that we're going to get to in just a second. Guys, go to reicoaches.com right now to get registered for next year's event. It's November 4th and 5th, 2021. We're in 2021 already. Can you believe it? November 4th and 5th. No, the first day, the 4th, is an implementation day. We usually bring in someone who is an absolute rock star to give us a full day worth of incredible content on how I'm not holding back anything. Literally put it all on the line. Last year, Tom Kroll came and gave a full day's worth of literally open the door to his business and let you see his KPIs, let you see everything. This is what we do every year so you can actually get the nuts and bolts of incredible coaching businesses. And then we have our speaker day, which is going to be November 4th. We're going to bring in about 6 or 7 rock star speakers. Already have a couple who are committed for next year. Steve Cook of Life and Air, Marcel Humphrey, who's up in the Baltimore area doing incredible things. We got some incredible speakers already booked. Get registered now. Ticket prices are going to go up. So get your tickets now while it's still on discount. Go to reicoaches.com for that. With all that being said, I want to bring in our guest today, Richard Roop. And Richard, I want to start off from the very get-go and ask you this kind of tongue-in-cheek question. So forgive me. I'm saying it, lightly, lightheartedly. Who the heck are you? I've never heard of you before. Who are you? You're apparently famous and I don't know who you are. Who are you?
Well, I was probably doing deals while you were, I don't know how old you are, but I started doing deals.
We're not going to talk about that, but go ahead.
Yeah. What's that?
You said you don't know how old I am.
So
we're not going to disclose all that. But who?
Richard, we're not going to disclose that.
Who are you? I've been in this business since 2012. I've been coaching since 2014. Never heard of you before until about 6 months ago. And we met a couple of times at the family reunion event that Matt Andrews puts on. Sean McCloskey speaker training event. We've met a couple of times, but I want to get to know you. And I have a feeling that there are a lot of newer coaches out there, kind of this new wave of coach who's gotten into the real estate space lately. We just don't know who you are. Tell everybody who you are and kind of give us your little backstory.
I'm so old in this business that I don't even know what OG stands for. What does OG stand for? They say I'm OG. Is that old gangster? What is that? I don't... So I've been in this business helping real estate investors since 1996. Okay. So I actually started buying properties you were in high school, right? And I actually bought my first couple of properties. I did really well in 1987 and 1988, but I actually became a real estate entrepreneur. I made it my business of buying and selling houses in 1996. And prior to that, I was a marketing consultant. I was the marketing director for NLP.com, neuro-linguistic programming. I built a business in Hawaii for 6 years we did personal growth and development books, tapes, and seminars. The information marketing business that a lot of the coaches are in, right? Our REI coaches, they're in that information marketing space. That's where I got started. That's where I had my most success. That's where I kind of, got very financially successful. And then I became very good at marketing, but then I was just trading my time, even charging a couple $100 an hour as a marketing consultant. I still had to go find clients and then, and I would over deliver. So I wasn't making $200 an hour, right? But I always had that real estate bug. And so I got some training with Ron LeGrand. And of course I got the Carlton Sheets course. That was weak. I got Ron LeGrand stuff. And that really got me started. I got Lou Brown stuff. I got Bill Bronchick stuff. I got everybody's stuff, right? But there's a few of those that really made a difference. But I continued to, build my library. Yeah. I became the marketing consultant for real estate entrepreneurs in around 2000 when I started going to events on the circuit. In fact, I was supposed to take over guerrilla marketing for real estate entrepreneurs from Ron LeGrand. He was a boot camp that he did. And I was supposed to take that over. And right at that time, they kicked him out of his company. They stopped doing it. And I never actually took over that boot camp role. He gave me the slides and everything, but he got back into his own business. That other business is no longer operating. That's a story in itself. I started, publishing. I did do a seminar. I would record it. I would create a home study course. And most people that know me, Brian, are from my publishing. I've published over 200 audio and video programs on every aspect of real estate success, real estate investing success, as a entrepreneur, not as someone who's like trying to get a return on their money, but as a business.
Right.
And so that covers the area of marketing, and that's marketing for sellers, that's marketing, deals, that's marketing for buyers, that's marketing for private investors. Then buying, that's deal structuring, that's negotiating, right? Then there's the funding, that's creative financing, owner financing, subject to, and private lending, right? And then selling, and selling is the easiest thing and I'm more into buy and hold as opposed to flip, because why do you flip, Brian? Cash, right? Why do you flip a deal? Why don't you just hold it, right? If it's a good deal, why don't you just hold it? It's because people want the quick cash.
Yeah. So
you want to get in a position where you're taking care of your cash flow needs, so you can actually, especially now, hold a lot of properties.
Yeah.
So my big thing right now is I'm kind of known for the marketing, so I can fix anybody's marketing campaigns, whatever they're doing, whatever business model they got, just from the marketing strategy standpoint. And then really good on the creative structure, creative deal structuring, creative financing, as well as running your business like a business.
Right. Well, as you've already mentioned, there's lots of stuff that's out there on, I've Google searched you. You have tons of information out there. You just mentioned over 200 different things that you've published, which is absolutely mind boggling, to think about that. The old days of the cassette tape, popping that in and listening to.
Yeah, I started with cassettes.
I used to listen to motivational speakers in the late 90s, and you had to do it with cassettes. It was, but there's plenty of that out there. There's podcasts of you recently that I've checked out where you're talking about the nuts and bolts of your real estate business, which is awesome. Fantastic stuff. I highly recommend Joe McCall. We'll link it up in our show notes. Joe McCall's podcast that you did. I know you got into marketing a lot. We're not going to do any of that today. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff, which is awesome stuff. We're going to talk about how to be a coach, how to be an effective coach, and more specifically, really how to overcome adversity as a coach. One of my biggest fears, Richard, as a coach and really as a real estate investor, is I've been sued, and I've heard that the you're not really a true real estate investor until you have been sued. I've heard that old adage, but I've been sued before. I know a lot of my close friends have been as well, for really not doing anything that I either haven't been taught or that it's just stuff gets misconstrued, maybe not disclosing as well as maybe I probably should have, things like that. If I Google search your name right now, Richard, a lot of stuff pops up from your past. And I want to kind of give you an opportunity, not from the very beginning of this show, I really want you to kind of tell both sides of the story. There might be people listening to this that have no idea, but they might go and Google search you later and kind of figure that out, kind of give their side of the story of what happened. And then I would love for you to talk about your side of the story too. And I may ask you a follow-up question as well.
Absolutely. Well, what happened is I've lost everything that I ever built over 30 years as a marketing entrepreneur, real estate entrepreneur. I lost my reputation. I lost my $6 million portfolio of properties. I lost my personal residence, even though it just all this, I can get into the details. It just doesn't make sense. But yeah, I lost everything around it kind of ended. I gave up around 2015. So it started around 2014, but at the end of 2015, they pretty much destroyed me. And that's actually for 5 years. I disappeared for 5 years. I was not interested in getting back in the real estate investing business or the coaching business. I started my coaching program in 2005. I had to shut my coaching program down in 2015, in November of 2015, when I was dealing with this lawsuit with the state of Colorado. they actually put me in jail for contempt of court for 30 days. And while I was in jail for 30 days, which was quite an experience, Brian, I'd never been in jail before. This was in Denver. And it's a crazy story behind that. But my merchant account couldn't get a hold of me. I had $50,000 coming in a month from my coaching clients and on auto pay. And they shut down my merchant account while I was in jail. And then when I got out, I could not get it turned back on. So even though they originally, when they started the lawsuit in April of 2014, saying that I was dealing in securities without a license, that I was selling unlicensed securities related to my private investors, and that I was doing fraud because I was not disclosing enough information to my investors, right? So that was their allegations. And so I continued to do my coaching and my publishing and my seminars, but I stopped buying and selling houses because my entire operation was in question. It's like, how can I continue to do this when I'm making promises in the future and the future is uncertain, right? So they instantly put me out of the house business with the lawsuit. And then, and the challenge is anybody that dives down into it can't find anything that I did wrong, right? But they destroy you to the point where you can't defend yourself. They took all the money out of my bank account, which they weren't allowed to do, but they said, well, just bring it up with the judge. You know, it was just like a kind of a mafia type of scenario. And the only people that I think are kind of might be concerned about something like this happening to them is the group we're talking to right now, Brian, because my students, nothing I taught, I could say, you know, don't do this because it's wrong. Everything I taught, everything I did was appropriate. I can give suggestions in hindsight on what to do differently to maybe potentially avoid problems. But one of the reasons that they were able to target me is because as a speaker, as a coach, as a author, I exposed to everybody exactly what I did in my business. I taught what I did in my business. So everybody knew exactly. So I couldn't like hide my assets when I'm talking about all these deals that I'm doing and that how I use trust. And I'm answering all the questions that people have. So if anybody wanted to find out what I owned, they were able to do it. So this whole thing about hiding your assets or asset protection, that's really important. And so if you're out bragging about what you're doing, that could, open you up to being, Bob Bloom. Do you know Bob Bloom? He's an attorney. He teaches real estate investors and entrepreneurs how to protect their assets and save taxes. In his presentation, he talks about appearing broke, being rich, but appearing broke. You want to do that. That's what real estate investors want to do. But how do you do that if you're a coach where you're kind of using your success as part of your marketing message?
And Richard, if I might interject, because I want you to finish your story, but you are 100% correct. And I am going through, a lot of people know, I'm not afraid to really talk about it right now. I'm going through a divorce right now where exactly what you just said, where a lot of the stuff I've come out publicly because I'm teaching people. Now I own this house and this house and this thing and this thing. And it's like, oh, you do you? And thankfully there's still a lot that I don't want to get into a lot, but there is still a lot that you just can't find. You just wouldn't be able to find. No one would be able to find it.
Right.
But there's a lot that I've talked about publicly, and it's like I'm getting punished right now because it's kind of a catch-22. And obviously I'm a lot different situation than you are, but I'm still getting sued for divorce. But continue your story, Richard, because it's such a catch-22. And I want to circle back around to that and ask you what do we do? But continue the story. Like, what else happened? What else did they accuse you of? And what's kind of your side of the story? How, finish that up for me if you don't mind.
Well, they, it actually started in I had a disgruntled business partner, someone I hired to be the general manager of richardroop.com, my publishing business, and Bottom Line Results, my property management business, right? So and I had bought over 500 properties over the years. I sold a bunch, to meet live my preferred lifestyle, right? But I still had about 60 at the time when this all started. And so I hired this couple to manage my bookkeeping and help, I want to just be the creative side and do the marketing and do the creative side and do the, the group support, creating solutions for problems. That's what I'm good at. And I wanted someone else to run the business. So a lot of people would like to have a general manager. It's so hard to do that, but I trusted these folks. I hired them, and then I found out they were embezzling from me after 6 months where they weren't giving me any reports. I called them on it. I sued them on it. And then they threatened to turn me over to the Division of Securities if I didn't settle. And it's like, and I even have the emails on this, and it's like, for what? And then later in the deposition, we found out she had some excuse. She said that I told her that every property should be in a trust, which doesn't make any sense. I said, no, I never told you that. And she said that was the reason why she turned me over to the Division of Securities that started an investigation. And during that investigation, they didn't find anything, but they kept asking for more and more documents. And at some point I said, look, unless you have any complaints, unless you tell me what this is about, because I was licensed at the time as a securities broker to actually broker private money. I used the private money myself, but I actually had the ability to broker the private money, and I was licensed to do that. And when I stood up for my rights about, look, you can't, I'm not going to continue to give you information on my business unless you tell me what it's about. The commissioner of securities for Colorado didn't like that. They didn't like me standing up for my rights, and they thought I had something to hide or something. But it took a couple years before they actually sued me. They subpoenaed all my records, so I did have to give them everything. But it took a couple years for them to, come up with these allegations. And the allegations were selling securities without a license, selling unregistered securities, and fraud, which is meaning I didn't disclose, information to investors that they need to know. Well, there's no list. That's subjective, right? What you disclose. I disclosed all, what I think people need to know, value of the property, all the stuff that someone would need to know, but was their complaint. And then they run a press release saying that Woodland Park Man is alleged to be running a Ponzi scheme. So they called it a Ponzi scheme because, Brian, if I didn't sell a property and pay a private investor off, and the private lender, the loan came due on that property, then I would replace them, with their equity position with another lender. It's called refinancing, right? They said, because I'm paying off one investor with another investor, they say that's a Ponzi scheme. That was, it doesn't make any sense. Anybody that looks at it, it's refinancing, right?
It's a common practice in real estate investing. And that's the scary thing.
Yeah. Then, Bill Bronchek was my attorney. Do you know Bill Bronchek? So he teaches real estate investors. He has courses and stuff. He's been around as long as me. Okay. But he's kind of in a different, real estate investor space, so to speak. But he was my attorney. And then after they sued me, they sued him. So it was more of a vendetta versus actual problem. And they put me in a position where they forced me, they kind of, I decided to settle. Okay. And that was a mistake. I shouldn't have settled. I let them take some of my properties into receivership. I thought they were going to sell them and pay off everybody. They didn't do that. They just took all the income on the properties, 37 properties for a year. They took all the income, didn't pay anything out. This is money going to the receiver and his team of attorneys, and they just drained the estate. They admitted that there was, $1 million in equity in the state. Okay. But they drained off 850,000 doing nothing. Okay. And then they turned it over to a bankruptcy attorney where I was actually able to keep a third of my properties. But then the receiver turned it into bankruptcy and my other properties were in my corporate name. So they just took the rest of my properties. So I agreed to settle with them on a certain, and then they didn't keep any of their agreements. They took everything, and there was just really put you in a position where you can't defend yourself. So today I have enough friends where I could probably go ahead and defend myself, and I would, knowing in hindsight, knowing what they eventually did versus what I thought they were going to do. Right. I thought they were going to take care of everybody, but they actually defaulted on every single agreement with every buyer, lender, seller, all of that. It just created a mess. I had nobody ever lost any money. I didn't have any complaints. I was doing good business. So it just doesn't make any sense. And I'm under a gag order, so I'm not supposed to say it was, not right of them to sue me, but this is me following the letter of the order, and they got me in contempt for three times for contempt of court because I'm following the letter of the rules and doing what I'm allowed to. And one of the things I'm saying now is I'm allowed to talk about what the bankruptcy attorney did and the receiver did. I can't really talk about what the Division of Securities did. So otherwise I'd be under violation of that order, but I don't care. I think what's important is the truth. And yeah, how can people learn from what happened to me? How can they do something, avoid it? I don't have a lot of good answers, but I have some, Brian, as far as what coaches can do, learn from it.
Well, Richard, it sounds like it all started with someone kind of threatening you because you didn't do something. They kind of turned you in for something. That's how it started? Somebody turns you in, your bookkeeper turns you in, just because they asked you to do something you didn't, you're like, no, I don't want to do that.
Well, they wanted to create a distraction. They wanted to take my focus off of what I was trying to get my money back from them. They wanted to put me in a position where I'm busy handling this, so I couldn't take care, go after them.
But that's how it all started, right? That's how the whole thing got going.
Yeah.
So
that's how it started. Yeah.
So this kind of stuff.
There weren't any complaints from any of my lenders or buyers or sellers or anything like that.
I just got an email the other day from, I send out emails. A lot of us, in the coaching business send out emails to our lists and stuff. Send out an email to my list. We're doing a webinar. This guy emails me back, replies to the email and says, take me off your list. And I reply, great, no problem. There's a one-click unsubscribe button at the bottom of the email. Click it, one click, you're unsubscribed. He emails me back and he goes, is it really worth a bad review on all your social media for you not to take me off your list? It's like, where do you draw the line with, here's the principle of the thing, or where do you draw the line with people just trying to almost extort you for just something so simple and so ridiculous? And I know yours is way, way, way more complicated.
Well, in my case, they wanted me to settle. They wanted me to pay them $1.9 million to settle. And it's like, for what? What? I would pay you $1.9 million for what? I haven't done anything wrong. Why would I give? So that's what they were after. Okay. Yeah. Well, when it was all said and done, guess how much money they got? $1.9 million. Okay. So they subpoenaed all my records, for personal records, business records, for so they knew what I had, and they asked me to give them everything I had, and I refused. And then they went ahead and took everything I had. So that's how it kind of, I don't think they understood my business, but they won. There was just no way. It was very hard to win in that situation.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that, you don't really, here's some advice I would give to folks out there. It's just, Richard, it's so scary to hear the story as someone who is not only a coach, but I'm an investor too. And I've had this conversation. I don't know if you know who Greg Pinio is. He's been in the business a long time as a coach.
I saw the video. He was a keynote at one of your events, right?
Yeah. Well, Greg's story is, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but you were telling me earlier, you're going to, probably put like a link on your website about all this stuff. Well, Greg spent a year in jail for mortgage fraud. That's what they convicted him of. And he's been on our show and he's talked about it openly and gave his side of the story. And it's just like, you hear the other side, you hear the real estate investor side of the story. And it's like, I'm doing the same thing, or I've done the same thing.
Right.
And that's what it's just kind of common practice in the real estate space, the coaching space. This is what we do. This is what we teach. and you just got in trouble for something that's perfectly legal, that I do. Greg Penio has gotten in trouble. I haven't done the specific thing that he did, but he spent a year in jail. And it's just like, this is some scary stuff.
Yeah. The receiver that was appointed, his job was to go in and find something that he could call criminal and put me in jail criminal, because it was a civil lawsuit. Okay. Right. They just couldn't find anything.
Right.
Maybe they thought they could find something. But it's really, in my opinion, it's all about the money. Everybody involved benefited. Everybody, involved in the whole thing benefited. And then when I tried to defend myself, it was like I had to hire an attorney in order to find out if I had to, go ahead and turn on all my records with the subpoena. I hired an attorney, an SEC type of attorney, which is really Division of Securities is a local state thing. Right. I hired this guy, and it turned out the guy who was on his advisory, I'm talking with him and this advisor, that advisor was the former commissioner of securities for the state, who actually hired everybody in the Division of Securities, including the existing commissioner. This guy hired all those people, and this is who's going to defend me, right? And he's telling me, you got to do what they say. So I'm out there trying to find a defense, and this is the type of thing, that's how is like, how do you find good defense? And then I had to spend $20,000 having their paralegal copy all the documents, all my files, as opposed to us doing it ourselves, because in case he had to defend me, if it actually turned into a lawsuit. This is before the lawsuit. This is when they subpoenaed my records. Well, later when they had the lawsuit, he said, well, he can't defend me. He's not going to defend me. He's not going to take the case. So it's a big scam. It's follow the money. And but how do you prevent that? I think well, the best thing from not a good thing would be not to own anything. Control things, but not own anything. That would be things. That's what Bob says, Bob Bloom. Yeah. Control, because you really don't want to own anything from assets, because like you said, on a divorce, that is a lawsuit. They're coming after your assets. And as real estate investors or just business owners, right? People can sue you for anything. And well, the people with the text messaging, right? The SMS, I mean, some people are being threatened to be sued and are being sued or are settling with people that are, you send me a text message, you violated the law, I'm going to sue you. Whether they violated the law or not, you either have to deal with it or settle. So it's, so how do you avoid that? That type of thing. So
Richard, so I'm with you, and this is what kind of has been my fear kind of ever since I got into real estate investing. And I spent a lot of money with asset protect. I kind of got duped a little bit, but I spent a lot of money with asset protection from the very beginning, which I don't want to say was useless, but was kind of useless. And just what you said, and this goes back to some books that I've read about, some tax implication type of books when it comes to real estate investors, where the phrase that you just said is the phrase that I've heard from really since 2012 or 13, which is own nothing, control everything. And so I've tried to have that mentality. I use land trust for almost everything. I try to keep everything just kind of out of the public eye the best I can, but if you get someone who's smart and knows what they're doing.
That's true. I mean, I had all my properties pretty much were in land trust. Okay. But I was the beneficiary. I mean, I was the trustee, right? Because in Colorado, I could be the trustee, and then my corporation could be the beneficiary. And that was all my properties were like owned by my corporation. And then I had another LLC that was for holds, long-term holds and stuff. But basically, I didn't own it. my corporation owned it, but you could clearly find out that I was connected to that property because I was on record as a trustee. So I wasn't actually I was not trying to hide things because I wasn't worried about someone doing this, right? Because I do good business,
right?
And now I was using the land trust, but when they subpoenaed all my records have all the details about, who's the beneficiary of the land trust, because on public record, it shows the trustee, right? It doesn't show that bottom line results or my other entity is the beneficiary of the trust. But when they subpoena all your records, they find that out. It's in your files. It's not public records in your files. So so they can find out what you got. It's good to keep things hidden so that you don't become a target of a lawsuit. But as speakers and coaches, we might be out there talking about all these properties that we own, and you're letting the cat out of the bag. So how do you do that? Maybe focus in on, a different type of message. So yeah, when they see, okay, what else did I did? I had a insurance policy, Brian, for errors and omissions type of thing. It was like a $1 million umbrella liability policy, right? Everybody should have some type of insurance like that. Guess what? If you're accused of fraud, it doesn't apply. Right. The insurance policy does not kick in. I can't use that because the allegation of fraud, not the actual fraud, just the allegation of fraud. And that also, when I was sued, that caused problems with my local bank that I've been doing business with for 20 years. And they shut my account down. And like I said, they shut my merchant account down, couldn't get that back up. They pretty much took everything, my livelihood, my businesses, my reputation. And then because I had a private lender secured by the equity in my property, my personal residence, they included that with because at first they took all the properties in the receivership that had private lenders on them, like 38. Okay. I kept like 18 or so that as part of the settlement agreement. But my house, my personal residence, did have a private lender on it because it was one of my long-term private lenders. He had wanted 170,000 to invest 170. And it's like, I don't have any deals right now, but I'll go ahead and take your money and I'll attach it to my house, secure it, and then we'll move it on to other investment properties. Well, before we did that, this thing came down. And so my house was part of this estate of properties that the receiver was going to take over, right? And then later, they went ahead, when they filed the bankruptcy, they took the rest of my properties. But my house, for a couple years, I couldn't make my mortgage. I had a mortgage, $5,000 a month mortgage, $1 million house, probably the nicest house in my little mountain town. Was featured on HGTV and all that. But it was, I just lived there for a couple years. I was not allowed to talk to any lenders. I was not allowed to, do a short sale or do a forbearance or to do a loan modification because I was not allowed to make the payments. And so I just lived there without making the payments. And then then a couple years later, they said, you know what? We're not going to do anything with your house. So we're going to release it from the receivership or the bankruptcy. Let's see. So you can go ahead and take. So they gave it back to me with $200,000 owed in back payments. And and guess what? They did that, Brian. Me and my wife were on title. It was in me, not my name, and my wife's name. And they transferred title from us without our signature to Bottom Line Results, my company. So they did it. They took all of my properties in trust and my home, and they transferred title into Bottom Line Results. They created a huge mess. They didn't have the right to take my wife's portion of the house. But what do you do? What do you do? And there was one thing else around that, but well, There was something else that I was going to suggest that people watch out for, but it'll come to me. Go ahead.
While you think about that, Richard, once the dust settles and it's kind of over, at least in the immediate, you settle, they've done what they've done. Maybe I guess it sounds like you had to move out of your primary residence and had to move somewhere else. When it's all settled, you told me that they destroyed you. They psychologically destroyed you.
Yeah.
Take me back, and I'm just, again, this is for our coaches. I really do think that this is important, and don't share anything that you don't feel comfortable with sharing, but take me back to that place mentally. What was going on, what you did, what I've had Billy Alvaro on here where he had $1 billion mortgage business in 2007, 2008, all came crashing down. And he's been on our show. He talked about suicidal thoughts. I'm not suggesting that's where you went, but he was talking about, he was in the deepest, darkest places. Where were you mentally? Kind of take us back to that time.
And like I told you earlier, before the call, I'll talk about anything, especially if it's going to help anybody. Okay. Because why did all this happen? It happened for a reason. Number one, the last financial meltdown, I started teaching people how to go after free and clear houses, buy with long-term owner financing, 0% financing, pay, go ahead and add, paying top dollar to your marketing, and pay top dollar if you get long-term 0% financing, you can do that. And that protected a lot of people after the last financial meltdown. And then the reason I came back is I am kind of on a mission because people need that strategy again now with the fallout of the lockdowns and what's going on going forward with the economy. People need to protect themselves, and all the people that kind of I've been reconnecting with are telling me how they're, that really kind of saved them or helped them. They still are benefiting from those properties they bought back then, and they're still using the model. They're still using my magic bullet postcard, all of that. So, and when I've been reconnecting over the last year, Brian, with a lot of the people, you've heard of, you respect, superstars that are up there killing it. A lot of these are my old clients. It's like, who's Richard Roop? He's the guy behind a lot of the guys that are out there, right, behind the scenes. But when I was reconnecting with them, they were all had their similar comeback story where they got destroyed or they had a hard time and then they came back. So the biggest thing, if something like this happens, is number one, Brian, I lost everything. I had everything and I lost everything and I'm still here. Okay. So they can't kill you. They can't destroy you unless you let them, right? I'm just as happy doing my business now without all of the financial assets behind me, because I know, because I have enough to live, but I live modestly right now and I'm just building that back up. But once you have all that money, I see this in you, Brian, when I'm looking at you, you're getting more, you're spending more time on your passions. Once you got that financial success, you find out that's not the most important thing. It's the family, it's your passions, it's helping people like you, like with your REI coaches. That's more important to you than, doing deals, right?
Richard, unfortunately, it took tragedy, it took trauma to get to that point for me. And unfortunately, that is what it takes for a lot of folks.
Or they can learn from you, or they can learn from me. I don't think you have to go through. So I'm an example of what. So it's, the challenge, Brian, is like everybody wants to know what are the lessons I can teach. There's not a whole lot of things I can teach except what I'm going to tell you now. Number one is it took me 5 years to come back. Okay.
Why, Richard? But why? Like, talk about.
I'm telling you, I'm going to give you the timeline. So for 2 years, for the first 2 years, when I got out of jail, I was in jail for 30 days. They sentenced me 60 days. They didn't have a right to put me in jail. I showed my intent to follow the George's order. It was actually just like signing a corrective deed on a property that wasn't even part of the receivership. It just didn't make any sense. It took 30 days to get back in front of the judge to get me out. Okay. But when I got out, it was like and I lost my information business, basically, it was like I gave up. Uncle, I just called uncle, right? So that was a decision I made. Looking back, I would not have given up, okay? And I would not have taken 2 years to get out of my funk. For 2 years, and this entire process, and then 2 years after that, I didn't do anything, Brian. I didn't do anything productive. I wasn't out there helping people. Wasn't out there doing business. I wasn't doing anything. I was doing nothing. And I was miserable. And it's like, why would I do anything when they can just come and just take it all away for no good reason, right? So that was a mistake. I should have got out of my funk sooner. And that's all inner game. That's mental mindset. You talk about, thoughts of depression or suicide and stuff like that. You lose everything. You have to focus in on what's important. And what's important is your family, and the fact that you are living another day, and you gotta appreciate that. So you gotta focus in on what the positive. You gotta focus on what you have, what you appreciate, and then you have to have some goals. I didn't have no goals. My entire future was dark. I teach investors how to be successful by setting those long-term and short-term goals, right? And how to overcome the obstacles and how to change your beliefs and your thinking and all of that. I'm really good at that. That's probably, you ask me who I am. That's one of the reasons why some of the people that I've associated with over the decades are so successful, is because I focus in on those highly, what I call sledgehammer techniques. I can teach you, I'll give you the best postcard to mail, but if I teach you how to, make any type of marketing campaign work, fix any type of marketing campaign, you have more leverage. So for 2 years, I did nothing. And then my wife, she was working. This is another way to get off of this, is to think about, if I don't get off my ass, who suffers? Okay. My wife suffered because she got 2 jobs just to, maintain our modest lifestyle or whatever, while we were living in that house. But she was working, she was working for the school district, helping with special needs kids. And during the summer, she was looking for a part-time job. And on Craigslist, she found this ad where they were looking for like a sales rep. Okay. And this was a company in Colorado Springs that actually meet with business owners that are looking to sell their business for sale by owner, and they have a marketing plan. And she read that description to me. I said, that's actually up my alley, because what we were going to do is we were going to get an RV, because we're going to be leaving our house. We bought an RV, and we're just going to live in our RV, travel, and I was going to do marketing consulting and publishing just from the road, and we always wanted to do that, so we're going to do it now, right? We said when the boys were grown, we would just travel, in our RV. So we were going to do that, and this job actually allowed me to work on the road like that, because it's actually on the road for 3 months out of the year. For a couple years, I kicked butt as like a sales rep for this company, meeting with business owners and signing up for a marketing program if it was appropriate. I'd have to look at their financials, see if it would make sense, that is something sellable, and then I would gather all the information for their marketing and put them into the program. And I had to travel, and these are like one-shot closes, right? So I actually never knew how to sell, Brian. I'm a marketing guy. I don't like rejection. I don't like salesmanship per se. I like selling to a crowd or doing copy or creating a marketing as opposed to selling. And I followed a structured sales presentation, which I taught other people to do. I just never had to do it. And it worked. I broke the record for the most sales for the first, sales rep in their 40-year history. I broke their sales record. I was sales rep of the year. So for 2 years, I did nothing. And then for 2 years, I went on the road meeting with business owners that wanted to sell their business, which was capitalized on my background with for sale by owners in real estate. But I still at that time, Brian, didn't think I was going to go back into the real estate space. Okay. As far as, my coaching and teaching my strategy and my publishing. But then I had a couple old coaching clients contact me asking for help. And I finally said, why am I not doing what I'm best at? What I'm best at is collaborating with other coaches, but also, helping people take their business to the next level through the marketing, through the creative deal structuring, through all my expertise. And so that's a year ago, I decided, yep, I'm coming back. And so it's exactly what I should have done earlier. And I feel bad because for 5 years, this is how it feels like to me, Brian. You didn't know me, but when I come back and I see what everybody's doing out there, marketing wise and stuff like that, I feel like I went to Las Vegas, with my wife, and I come back and the kids destroyed the house because they had a party, right? There's a lot of things out there that I know people.
What are you trying to accuse us of, Richard?
I'm accusing you of working too hard. There's some of you guys are just working way too hard. You should be getting double, triple, quadruple the return on your marketing dollar. You should be having a much better closing ratio. And it's just comes down to everybody's kind of doing the same thing. I call it marketing incest. And there's little tweaks that you can make to change things. And it's just everybody's doing what everybody else is doing. So so there's some opportunities for improvement there, especially. And then going forward, there's, with everybody, like a lot of the people that are now in this business over the years are really into this, flipping and in and out. And you really need to build some wealth. You need to focus on that cash now, but you got to generate that cash flow, holding some properties. And then you want to build that cash later with equity growth in a property from principal pay down, from appreciation, whatever. But you got to focus on those three areas: cash now, cash flow, and cash later. A lot of people are just focused on the cash now. And I think that's a mistake.
Yeah. Again, you're preaching to the choir there. Richard, I want to talk about what you kind of alluded to, what you've done since you've kind of gotten back. Facebook. The first time I heard of you is when you launched a Facebook group with my good friend Tim Mai. So I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about, I've seen you at all these events. You're going all over the place. I want to talk about that too. But real quick before I do, I want to kind of ask you a specific question about the 2 year window there where you just didn't do anything. You said, you've kind of seen me out there. I'm doing a lot of hiking right now. I'm following some of my passions, maybe.
Yes.
It's been about a year. This is the very first podcast I've done in a year, ever since my wife filed for divorce. It's been a year. Mm-hmm. And this is the first one. I'm back. I'm back. And it's so difficult.
So that was holding you back? That was holding you back? Were you in a mental funk about doing the podcast?
Yeah, I don't know about holding me back, but I didn't want to do anything. And so I've worked, I've done some stuff.
Well, that's holding you back. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's holding. So and that was your mental mindset was putting you in a position where you're not motivated to do it, right?
I didn't want to do anything. Right. So talk to that for a second. It's so much easier said than done. And you've been there, and I'm in it. I'm still in it. I'm kind of forcing myself out of it right now, but I'm still in it. Looking back, I know you've already said, yes, you make it through it. You'll make it through it. You'll do it. You should just go ahead and do it. But practically speaking, when you go back to that moment when you felt as down as you've ever felt, practically speaking, how do some of us get up out of that so quickly?
Look, it's okay, Brian, to grieve. You're grieving. You've been grieving for a year, okay? The lost, part of your life, a lost relationship, right? Would you say that's true?
100%, yeah.
Kind of yeah. It's okay, okay? But there's a time when it's over. It's time to move on, right? And this happens when people pass away. It's like you got to give people their space. And how long does it take? It's up to them, okay? I'm saying after spending 2 years at it is I waited way too long. I know that, okay? I should have, we got these guys out there grinding, and getting new people, just get on the phone and burn through it. Well, maybe you should do that when you come to a situation like this. Is if you notice you're in a funk, we recently did our first inner game coaching call in 7 years because I just restarted my coaching program. And we did it on the personal accountability model. Okay. And I would recommend people look that up, personal accountability model. And it's opposed to like taking accountability and owning it and learning from it and bouncing back versus the victim loop, right? Mm-hmm. That is beyond your control. So it's like my entire life, I taught people not to be a victim. And then I felt like I was a victim. And the problem was I couldn't wrap my head around what happened. I was still trying to figure it out. So I was like caught in I was still trying to figure it out. And I came to the point, you know what? There's no way, I can't figure it out. So I had to let it go. And there was an issue about what I call betrayal. You mentioned you saw the podcast interview I did with Joe McCall. That was the first time I talked about this happening to me. And it was, I actually had a private session with my coach, kind of a mindful mentor coach. And I actually let go of this issue of betrayal. I didn't know it was an issue, but I let it go right before I did that interview with Joe. And he was like, he was saying, look, I know you can't talk about everything. You can talk about whatever you want. But I told him that I can't say everything because I'm still under a judge's order, right? A gag order, which is criminal in itself. But after I let go of what I call betrayal, that feeling, that emotion, I text Joe right there and I said, you know what? I'll talk about anything you want. Just like I told you, I'll talk about it because I'm not worried about that anymore. And those negative emotions can be a filter of perception that holds you back. So it's like, what are the emotions that you need to let go, or what are the lessons you need to learn, Brian? That's why it took me so long. I couldn't figure out the lesson. I still have a trouble with that question. What did you learn, right? But you don't even have to know for consciously what the lessons are, because you have gone through the process. There are learnings, and you can operate knowing that your mind, your unconscious mind, is going to use those learnings to your benefit. If you trust that, if you have faith in that, then you can go ahead and let go of the negativity and move forward. What you need is direction. You need, what got me out of my funk was this new position. That new position I took, taking action. I actually took some action on something that I enjoyed. The first thing I did, they were hiring me as a sales rep. The first thing I did is I fixed their sales, some of their marketing, because I'm a marketing guy.
You kind of it kind of gave you rejuvenated you, gave you purpose.
That's how we get our fulfillment and enjoy out of being productive. And the most productive we are is what we're doing, what we're really good at, what we love, what we're passionate about. If you focus on that, there is no room for grief or sadness or, procrastination. Yeah. Just take action on, but you have to, I didn't have any goals. I didn't have any goals at that time. What about you, Brian? Do you have some?
Yeah. So from the beginning, like I about 2 months after it happened, I went from the couch weighing 210 pounds and started training for a half Ironman. So, because I knew I needed structure, and it wasn't something I particularly loved. And a lot of people see me hiking. A lot of people see me doing all this stuff, and I'm out there and traveling, and I do enjoy it. It's not my passion. I don't love it, but it's almost like I'm forcing myself to just get up. You got to do something. And I think what's different, I want you to talk to this point, Richard. I think what's a little bit different there's a lot of differences, but mentally what's different between our situations is this business for entrepreneurs in general is a pretty lonely one. It's lonely kind of at the top kind of thing, where my actual partner in life left. And it sounds to me like yours didn't. It sounds to me like, I want you to talk to that for a second. What did your wife?
I went through that.
So I actually went through I'd love for you to talk about that.
I went through a similar situation when I was known as, it was, richardroop.com at Richard Roop. And then in 2004, I partnered up with Dan Duran. Okay. Dan Duran was I hired him to be my sales department because I didn't like sales, right? But then we started doing stuff together on stage and through webinars and stuff. And he's very good he's very smart. He's great content. We were a good mix, right? So we became Richard and Dan. So we were known as that. But later, business-wise, people loved him and he was good. But business-wise, we couldn't work out some of our differences, right? So we finally had to get divorced, okay? And it took me 2 years, Brian, to go through the same brain damage, the same depression. It's like, how do I break this off with Dan? I'm trying to make it work. And I couldn't make it work. And I'm thinking, I can figure this out. And I couldn't figure it out. And I just couldn't figure it out. So for 2 years, I was actually kind of depressed. And I think at that time, I almost got suicidal at that point. I don't know why, but it was like, I just felt, betrayed, that thing about betrayal. And, but finally I was able to break it off. Right. So that to me was like kind of like a divorce. Now we're actually doing some stuff. We recently decided to work on some projects together. Okay. Because he's a great guy. We just couldn't be in business like that. And we had to change it. So that was another time that I went into that mental funk for 2 years. I remember I was on a cruise to Alaska, going down a zip line on a mountain, thinking about this problem with that situation. It just put me in a funk no matter what I was doing. So.
Well, let's focus on the positive. Let's focus on the, on the comeback story. Because we talked a lot about the past, which I didn't really want to spend that much time on it, but I'm kind of glad we did. Hopefully give a lot of people some perspective, some hope. The comeback story now, Richard. The first time I heard of you was you had started a Facebook group with Tim Mai, who is just kind of known. You can't even really say he's known as a real estate investor anymore because he's just kind of known as doing everything. But love Tim. He's awesome. Is that one of the first things real estate wise you started getting back into? And what made you do that? It seems like it was really successful. Kind of talk about that whole thing. Why'd you decide to do a Facebook group? The whole thing.
Okay. So right now we're talking in January, right? 2021. So a year ago, December, I got a call from an old coaching client, Melvin Yates. He's a real estate broker out of Maryland. I just actually stopped and got to see his office and everything this last week. I was traveling, and he called me and he wanted to start a real estate mastermind. Okay, he wanted to start a mastermind. Well, he's one of the top recruiting brokers for Exit Realty. He's got 165 agents in his office. He's very successful, and he's one of my old coaching clients. And he wanted me to help him create this mastermind. And of course, I've come from the information marketing space. I've worked with a lot of the real estate gurus out there helping them with their businesses. So I was happy to do that. And then at the same time, I got a call from Bert Dolman, he's the editor of the Wellington Letter. He was my first marketing consulting client in 1996 in Hawaii when I left or in 1994. So he's been like publishing his newsletter for 40 years. I was one of the most successful guys he used for, working on marketing campaigns and stuff like that. He said he's never found anybody since. But I sold my house in Hawaii using a 9-day bid process, 9-day sale, selling it to the highest bidder during one open house. I don't know if you ever heard of that process, but basically you've got a bunch of people at an open house, had people bid up the price and sold it to the highest bidder. It's called a round robin bid sell. I wrote a book on that, how to sell your home in 9 days. It's how I sold my home in Hawaii in 9 days. And he remembered how I sold my house in Hawaii. He's still in Hawaii, but he has a house in Lake Tahoe and a house in Bel Air. He wanted to sell his house in Bel Air, $9 million mansion. He said, maybe that process that you used to sell your luxury home in Hawaii, you could sell my mansion. So I got excited, Brian, because that's right up my alley. It's an old client. You guys got more, so you want to work with people that have money. He's got money, right? So, and it'd be fun to sell his mansion. right? From a marketing standpoint. So I took on the job and I started traveling in December, January, February, and March. I was on the road. So once a month, I would drive from Texas to California to meet with family, but also work on these projects, but also to reconnect. So to answer your question, I had a Facebook group. I mean, I lost my contact list. I let it go, but I had all these people on my contact list on LinkedIn. So in order to get some help on marketing this $9 million mansion in Bel Air, I reconnected with all my real estate folks, buddies. I'd go through there and I'd say, oh, my buddy. So I was calling them. I said, look, I'm in town. So I saw Roland Frazier down in, San Diego. I saw, all kinds of people up and down Southern California. Then I went a little north just to meet with people. So I was reconnecting with people when I was driving. I was meeting with people in Arizona and along the way. So I just started working my social media contacts, and I was on the road and I was actually calling them. If we didn't meet, at least we connected that way. But then I was meeting with people, and then I continued that process of, I turned on my Facebook 1 year ago, January. I never used it. I got in there somehow and I started reconnecting with people I knew. And then I attended a couple of virtual mastermind events because I was knocked off the road in March because of COVID, so I couldn't do my traveling anymore. So in April, May, and July, I did a mastermind for experts, authors, speakers. It was the Top Talent JV Mastermind with David Fagan. And it was a network. It was networking with high level folks, right? So I started getting consulting clients, and I think Tim got a hold of me because of the Facebook, and he wanted to do a project, so he approached me, and we put a 5-day challenge together, the 7-figure lifestyle business challenge, and that was my first event in 7 years, and it was a lot of fun. And I did a couple since then, and I have a boot camp coming up, my first boot camp in 7 years. So,
how do you feel right now?
I feel great. I'm in the flow, Brian. I am in the flow. As you know, I went to several speaking events where I saw you. We went to Sean McCloskey's event. I went to Bob Diamond's event in Puerto Rico for speakers. I went to the family reunion in Tampa. And what's amazing, Brian, is it's the legendary Richard Roop. You didn't even know who I was. But for the old timers, it's like I'm the legendary Richard Roop. And I thought that's funny, man, the legendary Richard Roop. So apparently, again, a lot of my old associates and clients and stuff, apparently they still refer to a lot of stuff that we've done in the past. So I kind of have this, I'm kind of talked about. That's what I'm learning. Oh, so-and-so talks about you all the time, right? So it's like, but yeah, so the good thing is I did make a difference. They didn't kill me, and I am back, right? And if you are not back 100%, Brian, I'd be happy to ask you whatever question I need to ask you that would cause you to shift into getting into your maximum energetic forward motion space.
Do you know what that question is, or do I need to give that question to you?
Exactly.
I need to give it to you? I don't know what it is.
No, you already asked. I asked you. See, that's called hypnotic language, Brian.
You mentioned NLP a second ago. Now I'm getting nervous.
Yeah, no. So that's like a suggestion that if you ask me a question, any question, it'll help you move forward. And you ask me a question, and so technically your mind's going, we can move forward now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's
and I made that decision. A few weeks ago that I wanted to start getting back and doing the podcast. But if I was going to do a podcast, I wanted it to be not the same old. We have other REI Live folks who are going to do, which we'd love to have you on, by the way. We have other folks who host REI Live podcasts, who are asking the how-to kind of questions, like how do we market? How do we do this? So we'd love to have you on that with a different host. We'd love to bring you back on. But I wanted to, like you mentioned earlier, the REI Coaches event, it's like the family reunion. Or Matt Andrews was actually the inspiration for me creating it. It's for coaches. It's there's so many coaches out there who are newer, and whatever you have to say about, if you haven't done so many deals, you shouldn't be coaching. That everybody has their opinion about that. But the fact remains that we're going to continue to have new coaches and mentors in the space. So why not equip them? Why not give them some great information to where they can be better and not harm folks, which some unintentionally do. So that's why I created REI Coaches in the beginning. And guys, let me just repeat before we're going to wrap up with Richard. I still have a few more questions I want to ask him. Probably got another 15, 20 minutes with him. But don't forget to go to reicoaches.com right now. You're going to get a massive discount. The ticket price is going to be well over $1,000 come probably October. So you got some time, but I would highly encourage you to get your tickets now, reicoaches.com, for our conference is coming up on November 4th and 5th with Richard. We'd love to have you there, by the way. Love to have you at our coaches.
I will be there. I will be there. And by the way, you mentioned Tim Mai. It was great catching up with him. We never really did anything together, so it was a lot of fun. And he actually has the same type of mission. He's working on putting some coaches together. And
he got that idea from me. Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. He was at our coaches conference a couple of months back, the 2020 coaches conference. We've talked about that a lot. Tried to find some synergies, and we're still kind of talking. Maybe we'll make that work. Richard, the Facebook group with Tim, was it successful? If you don't mind, I'd love for you to kind of open the hood a little bit and you don't have to give us numbers if you don't want to, but what was your objective going into it? What was the objective? How did you execute it? And was it successful?
Well, the way we filled up got coaching members before, we started doing coaching in 2005, and I did it until 2015. And the way I would get coaching clients is I would start by giving them a lot of free content to get them interested and provide value. I call it selling in a vacuum. Then get them some training, some home study, or some seminars, a series of seminars, or whatever, a boot camp. But we got to train. People need training. To me, coaching is not about group training. It's about accountability. It's about performance. Okay. So we did provide the group training and answers any questions and unlimited support, but our model was designed on the inner game side of the business of setting a goal, focusing on the goal, overcoming those obstacles. So we have probably one of the best coaching libraries on the planet because of that, as far as content. And so we wanted people trained before we sold coaching. So other people like Tim, he wants to do an event and sell coaching right out of the bat, right? Just get them right into coaching, right? And it's well, I don't know how to do that because but we had to decide on a topic. Everybody's doing these challenges, so we wanted to do a challenge. And I decided that the best value I could provide to the marketplace is how to create a business vision using the NLP, using the secret of creating your future process, using strategies that I've always taught over the years that are like what I call sledgehammer techniques. It's the biggest impact, change, value I could provide a group, right? But it's advanced. It's not the nitty gritty technical how-to that a lot of newer investors would want, right? Or even experienced investors want to know what's working best now. So that was my focus. So my focus was delivering a great 5-day content, as coaches, we really need to have a sales process during those 5 days. It should be designed to sell some type of package, right? I didn't know what package I was going to sell until day 4. So I'm not a good person to do not model that, okay? Because so Tim wants to do another thing, but he wants me to have my package ready. He wants all the promotions ready. He wants everything in the can before we schedule a date, which makes sense. So we kind of had two different outcomes. It was him. He wanted to make maximum sales of coaching. He wanted to sell a bunch of coaching, which we did good on that. But we could have done a lot better if my intention was to come back, to build my list. See, I told you, I've built my business through publishing. Publishing is designed to build your list. So build your list and then work your list. Build your relationships and work those relationships. That is the key to success in any type of business. I've always done it that way. I was never into the fast sell or, let's explode our sales next month. It's like, well, so you got to have a reason. So, I'm talking to someone right now. They said, let's do a lot of sales next month. Okay, but why? What's the reason? Why are we in a hurry? Why do, yeah, it would be good, but do we really need to do that? Or can we do much better if we spread it out over 6 months? So,
yeah.
So Tim was very useful he has some VAs and he helped build the group. So from a technical side, I didn't know how to build a Facebook group. I knew how to build the relationships, provide content, interact, and all of that. But from a technical side, his team handled that. Yeah. He also had ClickFunnels for the registration and stuff like that. I didn't have any of that set up. So we were kind of, he had his strengths, I had my strengths. But I was the content provider, the speaker, the celebrity, all that side of it.
And that's a great partnership. A lot of times, you bring two completely different, sides of the business together, and that's totally Tim's strength. That's totally Tim. And to bring on someone like you, who apparently was an OG that I just didn't know anything about. So I'm really glad to connect with you, Richard. Going forward, you mentioned going to all these events. I saw you at the family reunion, didn't connect with you, but I got to at a little bit at Sean's event. Going to these events, why is that important? Why is it important for you? Why is it important for other folks? Even talking about the REI Coaches event, why is it important for us as coaches and influencers and mentors to go to events like this?
And it's like you and me and Tim, we would just like to spend our entire time going to these events like this because they're fun. These are our buddies. This is our tribe, right? And we learn and we grow and we learn and we get to brag and we get to teach. And it's like what people would want to do all the time. And some of you guys are in all these masterminds. See, I've never done that route. I could see why you would want to. You're in all these masterminds. You get to do that on a regular basis. So why would you do that? You got to be careful. You still have to have a game plan, some goals that you're working on, and work those goals in that implementation. So going to these events should be part of your overall sales and marketing goals for you growing your business. Okay. Because, so when you go, my intention was to connect and to meet people, reconnect with people that I knew, and then meet other people that I maybe were aware of and I wanted to meet, and then other people that I never heard of, right? It was just, I knew it would be a great place to hang out, right? Because of the people that were going to be there and the type of group it was. In the past, I was so busy kind of working on my own, selling my own stuff to my own list. I wasn't in this big JV space. Mm-hmm. This is the big JV space.
Right.
So I played in that arena. I did a product launch, in 2009 for the free and clear cash machine. I had a lot of these guys promote me and everything. But I didn't need to promote other people's stuff. I would be looking for those people that I needed as part of my dream team, the experts that I'm not an expert in, but my clients and my students need that. So I was big on collaborating and joint venturing that way, but I wasn't into just pitching someone into my group because they can sell well. They have to have good, verifiable, valuable content or tools and all that. So that was really important to me. So these events is to connect and learn. I had, Brian, there were some people I'm going, yeah, I don't know about this person, right? But when I went there, just because of just not enough information, and then I went there and I meet them and I learn about them, I go, man, this person's great. I want to associate with them. I want people I know to know about them. So it's about learning who to, hang out with, who to collaborate with, who to recommend. Because you said this is a lonely business. You should not be doing this alone. You don't have to have a big team. You do want these relationships. And so, it's about building those relationships, rekindling those relationships, but having a specific purpose when you go to those events. When you go to those events, Brian, what is your intent?
I'm an influencer. I'm a connector. Okay. So I go to nurture relationships I already have and to meet people like you who I've not had a chance to meet yet, and get people on my podcast. I go to be seen. I know it sounds kind of weird, but I want the picture with Joe McCall on social media. It's what, the book Influence. I'm sure you've probably read Influence. You've heard of that book.
Course.
It goes back to social proof. You get a pic. I'm doing a podcast with the infamous, the famous, Richard Roop. And just to have my name next to yours, associated with yours, is a big deal. To have my name associated with Matt Andrews.
Vice versa.
Exactly.
You have your following, you have all your fans that,
absolutely. That don't know you. And they're getting to know you.
And that's networking.
Absolutely. And it goes back to, this has gone on forever. It goes back to, even in the 90s, I associate it with hip hop in the early 90s, really made it famous for, Dr. Dre put out his first album, and who did Dr. Dre make famous? Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg was on his first record and made Snoop Dogg would not be famous today if it weren't for Dr. Dre putting him on his first album. And just stuff like that. I go back, I think about stuff like that. Who can I put on my record? And I want to make them famous, and vice versa.
You know who made me famous? Ron LeGrand. Okay. And Ron LeGrand is highly respected still today. He's still doing the same thing he did in the beginning. All right. I was gone for 5 years. I got a hold of Ron because it's like, I'm going to do some marketing consulting with some influencers. I didn't plan on, working with, creating all my stuff again. I was going to help people like Ron, improve his business. So I gave him first I searched to see what he was doing. He's doing the same exact thing. I was actually supposed to meet with him in April at his convention, because he wanted me to help fill his introductory one-day weekend seminars, and we were going to talk about it, but COVID canceled that, appointment, right? And I tried to help, and so I kind of gave him some ideas about going virtual and all of that. But he put me on stage. So I started going to his events, and he would always pull me up on stage to teach my marketing tools and strategy. And then he started sending 2 of my CDs, audio CDs, to all of his, continuity members every month. I had to pay for shipping them the CDs, but that was phenomenal. So a lot of why I'm kind of famous could be related to the fact that they got so much of my content for free as part of that. Yeah. So that was helpful.
It's huge. Yeah. And this is, people ask me all the time, how did you become so well known so fast? And it's because, and I wrote a book about it. I wrote a book about how I did that. And it's just finding the really famous people, kind of stroking their ego a little bit. Hey, could you come on my show? Could you come on my podcast? It was that simple. And that's how I started building relationships with some of these really bigger names. I wouldn't even know. Matt Andrews invited me to the very first family reunion 3 years ago. And he didn't know who I was, but he got a recommendation from someone else when it was kind of a closed, now it's way more open. Pretty much anybody can go, but it was like a closed kind of group. And the only reason I got to go to that first one is because someone else knew me that I had on my podcast, recommended me to him. We jumped on the phone. He said, hey, I want to invite you to this thing. It's going to be kind of a small group. Love for you to be there. And that kind of got me on the map. So I highly recommend everyone does those kind of things. Even starting a podcast is just
okay. Simple. When me and Tim did our 5-day challenge, we were kind of like duplicating what other people have done, and other people had done like an expert panel, right? So we go ahead and put together an expert panel, and I got to connect with people I knew, but then all these people that Tim recommended that we have on our expert panel. So that created relationships, just, kind of showcase them, expose them, use their expertise, but then they get the promotion,
Absolutely. And you know what's funny about that? Let me. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna be a little vulnerable with you and tell you a kind of a bad story about me and you. Really, the first time I ever heard of you, you sent me a DM out of nowhere. I had no idea who you were, and you said I have to go back and pull it up. It was pretty long, and I'm sure you copy and paste it to a lot of people. But you were like, "We're having a panel discussion. We would love for you to be on it." And I'm like, who is this? I don't even know who this is. I Google search you and I'm like, I don't know about this guy. So I took about 2 or 3 days to respond to you. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? Sure, I'll do it. And you're like, too late. It's already full. And I'm like, and then I see what you did with Tim. And I was like, man, I kind of really missed an opportunity there. I really would have loved to have done that.
Because I did not know you, I should have told you that Tim suggested I invite you. That's because I didn't know you.
Yeah.
So we had
and I didn't know you, and I feel terrible.
Half the people on the panel I didn't know. Tim suggested I invite them. We were going to have about 8 or 9. We had 18, so we had to have 2 panels. So
my loss. I didn't take advantage.
But then I everybody was talking about your event for REI coaches, your event last year. And I said, look, I like told you, I think I went to I went to a couple events but I wasn't invited to your event, and you responded, and that's kind of how we that was my first direct connection with you. Yeah. Is I reached out and said, hey, Brian, I'm going to these speaker events. I should probably be at your next one. I was giving you the heads up.
Yeah.
In a nice way. So that was my intention was to build this relationship.
Yeah. Well, either way, I'm glad that we got before I let you go, Richard, I got one more, just kind of a burning question I really want to ask you. And speaking of traveling, you've been traveling a lot. You've been really, I don't want to get into politics at all, but I want to talk about something that's political, like a decision that you made that was political. You went to Washington, D.C. on the infamous day now, but you were part of that rally. I want you to talk about for a second, again, I don't want to get political, but I want you to talk a second about why because everyone has their own decisions that they need to make as an influencer. And I think that's why I'm asking you this question. Why have you I try to stay middle. I have my political beliefs, trust me, and they're pretty strong actually, but I try to stay really middle of the road publicly. You've kind of publicly just made it known what you stand for, which that's fine. That's your prerogative. The question is from a coach's standpoint, from a mentor standpoint, where you may alienate literally 50% of your potential clients by doing that. It's a decision that you made. Obviously, you weighed that before you did it. I'm just wondering why you chose to do that.
Because I actually wanted, I knew there would be some backlash. I said it in my post. I take responsibility for this. I'm at 5,000 friends. I want to make some room, because I basically said, because I'm apolitical, but I am for free, fair and honest elections. Okay. I saw evidence of kind of a fraudulent election, and I wanted that evidence looked at by Congress. Okay. So on January 6th, they were going to, if other senators objected, they would have to spend 10 days actually looking at this evidence that no one will look at, no court will look at, the public has not looked at. And if it proves that everything was on the up and up, great. But there are questions about the election. And so I went there to just show kind of my support to those senators that were going to object, and have them go ahead and spend 10 days looking at the evidence before they accepted the electors. So I was just there to support, our right, our ability to elect who we want, have free clear, free elections. So it wasn't like I'm a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter per se. It's I think if we let this go unchallenged, then there would be no faith in future elections. That was my opinion.
Which is your opinion, and you're completely entitled to that. I agree with that. I'm really wondering, and you kind of answered a little bit, but why you chose not to do what you did, but why you chose to make it public.
Because
in knowing that you might lose potential clients, because you have to know that going into it.
Right, because I've always tried to not talk about my political views, because I keep that separate from my business. In fact, people ask me about that in that thread on Facebook. I usually keep it separate. But I thought this was such an important thing that I said, I'm going to take a stand. I'm going to put my belief out there. And I think if by doing that, obviously there's a lot of people felt the same way, and they felt like they said, well, thanks for representing us. Right. That's so, but there was also people that just went off the deep end as far as their replies. Yeah. And I was happily unfriending them. Okay. So
even though they could have been a client that paid you thousands of dollars. So I do the same thing. Look, maybe something a little more lightheartedly, but I do the same thing. I went to Alabama. I am a staunch Alabama fan. Obviously, we just won a national championship. It's incredible. The whole thing is awesome. I hate Auburn. Like, I hate Auburn with such a passion that if somebody wants to unfollow me and somebody wants to not do business with me because they're an Auburn fan, I'm okay with that. And obviously that's a little more, lighthearted, but there's sometimes we just gotta, our beliefs are our beliefs. And I'd rather not work with someone who is.
Well, everybody knows that was a historic day. Unfortunately, okay, so I was there, and it was like a festival. It was peaceful. Nobody was angry, right? So all this stuff that happened, it happened, I guess, maybe while I was on the other side of the building or when I was leaving town, because I wasn't there that long. Okay. But nobody condones that violence at all. Nobody. Sure. So it's like everybody's like condoning the violence. Well, nobody agrees with it. and it was, I think it was, I have my beliefs around who started that and all that, but nobody will look at the actual evidence sometimes. But
anyway,
but yes, I was willing to lose potential business because it was more important to make this, to make a stance on that day when that was the time for them to decide if they're going to look at the evidence or not. Right. I decided the day before, Brian, to actually drive to DC from Texas. And I got there, I arrived after Trump's speech. I went directly to a park near the Capitol and went to the Capitol, and I could not get any cell phone service or whatever. People are saying Trump should have stopped everybody. Well, cell phones and stuff didn't work in the area, by the way. So, I mean, and then I came back. So I got a chance to meet with some of my old coaching clients, reconnect, I'm back on the road. So I reconnected with 3 of my coaching clients from the past that are just kicking ass. And then I met with my stepmom coming back, where we have totally different political beliefs, and we have great conversation. We had a great conversation. You don't have to diss people for their beliefs.
I agree. Yeah. Totally agree. Richard, I can't thank you enough for doing this. I know some of it might, rehashing a little bit of the past might have been a little uncomfortable, but the value I think it's going to bring, the people that are going to watch this are going to be the people who need to hear it and need to see it. So I'm really thankful that you opened up, and I appreciate you coming on the show. It was great to meet you and get to know you.
Yeah, I look forward to getting to know you better, Brian.
Awesome. Richard, well, if I don't see you in the next, I guess I'll see you at family reunion, right? So that's
You'll see me all over the place.
I'll see you all over the place. If I don't see you before then, I look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, Richard. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Brian.
All right. Bye-bye.